Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
If it's 4 to the floor and rocks to the core, it's a brand new apple slice. A taste of apple on the regular. In episode 9, join myself, Simon, along with Nick, as we drop details on the iPhone 7 launch and ask the question, what's the deal with the Aussie Banks? Plus, the new TV remote app, and you better believe it, hands-on with Sierra, iOS 10, and more. Now for a fruity infusion that'll get you groovin', make time for a damn fine apple slice. Right, hello everyone. It's another episode here. How's it going, Nick?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. Pretty busy week in the Apple world. So how's it going with you?
Yeah, pretty good. Have you watched any of the Olympics at all today?
I watched a bit of the opening ceremony yesterday. So I watched Australia come in, watched South Africa come in, and my partner really wanted to watch Portugal come in. So yeah, it was a bit weird. I always thought they went in on the Greek alphabetical order, but they went in on the Portuguese alphabetical order this time, being Brazil. So it was a bit of a different one. Yeah. How about you?
I just sort of caught bits of that, but mainly I just happened to turn on the telly and see it when when Australia won the gold, the women's relay. So that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I've been watching it on 7 Plus on Apple TV.
Yeah, cool. It's we'll just see what other sorts of things happen as the Olympics go on. I mean, typically, I'm not sure how South Africa goes, but Australia usually do pretty well in swimming and a few others. But as soon as it gets to track and field, it's usually a non-event. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah. South Africa's Olympics is not their forte. I mean, I think we won 1 gold last time, and that was in the rowing 4.
Yeah,
so,
okay. All right. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, but let's kick it off with product perception. Now, I went ahead and installed the Mac OS Sierra beta, and I understand, Nick, that you haven't done that yet?
Yeah, I've got some software that generally needs like a really stable operating system, so I'm still holding back. So yeah, what do you think so far?
Yeah, so what I did was I used my 2015 Retina MacBook Pro as kind of like the test subject, mainly because it's not my primary computer and I don't store a lot of stuff on it, so it was easy for me to back it up before the update and that type of thing. But I'm just going to run through some pros and cons. Now, the pros and the main feature is that Siri works pretty well. I tried a few queries such as what's the weather today? I did what's the time in Brisbane? How do I spell initiative? They all worked as I thought, worked smoothly. I did show me tweets from Simon Blackburn. That worked well. And a cool one that I tried was I was working on an iMovie file and I wrote open the last movie file I was working on, and it launched iMovie and opened the file. So I thought that was really pretty impressive. Cool. Yeah, that was good. Where it didn't work so well is I said, show me tweets from Nick Morris, and it picked up a Nick Morris, but a different one with a K on the end.
I knew it.
Yeah. And I tried show me tweets from Apple Slice, and it kept picking up Apple support. I think it's just picking up that word Apple and picked up that Apple support Twitter, yeah. But, I think the more you use it, the more you'll kind of realize the type of terminology that you can and can't use, and I'm sure they'll advance it even more. I mean, this is the first time we've had Siri on a desktop, so considering that and the fact that it's a public beta, it's not even the final release, it's working pretty well. I also, the only thing visually, so we were talking about the icons before, the actual icon up the top in color, I actually have grown quite used to it. So I'm not so concerned about it being not mono. But this one's a bit strange. So when actually Siri comes up and you ask a query, and when it loads the result, you got this sort of Siri waveforms down the bottom, and that looks cool. But then when it loads it up, it kind of, the waveforms turn into like almost like a light going upwards. You know how in iOS 10, when you want to do that sort of like themed messages, and you send the one that's kind of like the disco, whatever, and the light runs up and down. Yeah, it's sort of like a subtle version of that. So the waveforms turn into like a light, and it kind of like shoots upwards. And yeah, I wasn't really sure about that at first. I mean, it is subtle. It's such a quick thing that happens. But I've kind of thought maybe they should have just left that out, but that's just personal opinion. It was my first look at the revamped Apple Music, so I haven't installed iOS 10, as you know, and so I finally got to see the heavy fonts and everything, and particularly because it's in iTunes on desktop, that part of it's larger. But yeah, I'm really liking it. It's really liking the streamlined kind of look to it. Generally, macOS Sierra runs smoothly. All the programs work so far. Obviously, first-party ones do. I did a clean install, so I only have a handful of actual third-party apps, but they work well. And the storage options, I didn't, with the optimized storage and stuff, as I didn't have hardly anything on there, I didn't get to properly test that, but I did like the option where it detects, lists off all your large files, so you can kind of just remove any that you don't need. So that was pretty cool. Now, cons, there were a few visual errors, such as in iMovie, everything's fine, but a few of the buttons were misaligned, like the background was misaligned to the text, but I'm sure they'll fix that. I was doing some restarts with it. All worked well, except there was once when it showed up my login and a guest login, but it was like non-Retina pixels. It only happened once, and I'm sure it's just a beta problem, but that was a little strange. And it took a few relaunches of iBooks to get the iBook store loading. I don't use iBooks often anyway, but I was just testing it out. But once I got that to work, it works every time now. Now, a strange one is in the screenshots or the images they put together on the preview page on the site, the spacing around the spotlight icon and Siri icons in the menu bar at the top, they're normal as expected, but in the beta there's like a lot of extra space around them. And I sort of don't really know whether that's an error or not. It's sort of like inconsistent spacing. I kind of thought they have done that so then, because you'll be clicking there, by adding extra space between icons, it would prevent you from accidentally clicking the wrong icon, if you know what I mean. But it's sort of, at first it was a bit, I was a bit like, it's not consistent, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. And picture-in-picture, picture-in-picture only works by default if the website that it's on uses an API that allows it. Now, you can force picture-in-picture on YouTube videos, so you can right-click once and then right-click again and choose Enter Picture-in-Picture. But this only seems to work on the actual YouTube.com and not on embedded YouTube videos. So I'm not really sure if that's a beta thing too. And finally, my MacBook Pro has had issues with AirDrop not working anyway. I was hoping Sierra Beta would fix that, but it hasn't, so I'm not really sure. I have contacted Apple support with the feedback about it, so we'll see what happens there.
Is that AirDrop Mac to Mac or also your iOS devices?
It's AirDrop iPhone to the MacBook Pro.
We have problems at my house all the time with my partner, especially with Mac to iOS devices and vice versa. It just never works. So yeah.
I did get it working once, and I was like, oh sweet, I fixed it, and I restarted, and then it didn't work again. So not really sure what's happening there. But a few of the cool features that I wanted to try, but I haven't tested. Now I haven't tested these features because I don't have iOS 10 to try it out with, but Universal Clipboard, Shared Notes, which I'm really keen on, and iMessage. I haven't tested the Photos app yet because it's a clean install. I don't have any photos on there. And I can't use Apple Pay, obviously, because it's limited anyway, and wouldn't be available in Australia on anything other than ANZ or Amex, but we'll talk more about that later. And I can't test auto unlock because I don't have an Apple Watch yet. So, there you go. Overall, pretty positive. I'm just updated to the public beta 3 today, where they've introduced the new emoji and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, keen for the final release, but yeah, I'll pass it over to you, Nick, to talk a bit more about iOS 10.
Yeah, macOS Sierra sounds pretty cool. I can't wait to get on it. Just that one bit of software holding me back, but I've been running iOS 10, as you know, for a couple of weeks now, and I think I've gone through 3 of the public betas. So the first one was really buggy, and not a lot of stuff worked in terms of like old functionality. So all the cool new things work, but like Siri suggestions didn't work at all, widgets didn't work at all, and it just was extremely slow. And so I only loaded on my phone. I hardly ever use my phone compared to my iPad. And then most recently, with the latest update, it's getting a lot closer to the new iPhone launch. We'll discuss later, but that also means they're getting a lot closer to when iOS 10 needs to be done. So it's a lot more snappy. It's really, really quick, and battery life was better. And it might be I've been doing a bit of like a Facebook cleanse this week. So I don't know if it's because I haven't been on Facebook or because of the public beta having a lot better battery life. But anyway, my battery life's been better this week. And my main thing is that I've now installed it on my iPad, given that it's a lot more stable and actually nearing Golden Master version. And along with that came Swift Playgrounds, which has been really cool. So yeah, there's also a improved control center kind of layout as the betas have been going on.
Yeah, I sort of saw that they kind of prompted you kind of how it works. Is there that sort of I think that might be the developer beta 4.
It was like that, but not on my phone when I was upgrading. Like, it was as if it already knew that I knew how it worked, so it didn't prompt anything. But on my iPad, it did, because it was the first time I was installing it. And I don't know if it's actually been in all the betas or just now, but they've separated AirPlay, mirroring, and like in terms of your screen, and then AirPlay in terms of like sound. So when now in the initial page where you do your Wi-Fi toggling, you can either AirPlay a video or AirPlay mirroring to the Apple TV. And then in the sound section, if you just click that, it will pop your sound across. So they've done a bit of separation that actually makes it a lot more intuitive and make more sense there, and just gives it a more well-rounded feel. So yeah. It's really getting quite good. I'm enjoying iOS 10 a lot. I got my partner to install on her 12.9-inch iPad too. So yeah, it's going around. I'm trying to get her on that phone so we can all just be on iOS 10 and use messages and everything like that a lot easier. I'm not sure if I mentioned last time, but I haven't been able to use Siri on my Apple Watch since using iOS 10 public beta. Have I told you about that?
No.
Yeah, so basically what happened was, because I've been using South African Siri, there's no South African Siri on the watch.
Oh, yes.
So it actually killed all Siri functionality because it's passing it through the phone. It didn't allow any Siri on the phone. So, I mean, on the watch. So yeah, that was a bit of a bummer. But yeah, now I've also noticed while we're on Siri, you can actually separate what the front end voice and what the voice processing on the back end, what those languages are. So I've always had Siri with the UK Siri. So now I've just left that on the UK Siri voice, but actually put it on South African Siri backend.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that I actually quite like that. I prefer that sound of that Siri. So that's been cool. And I don't know, I've never noticed that before. It's not like that in iOS 9, right?
Yeah, no, I've just sort of just the one voice for everything. So that's it's pretty cool that you got one that is processing what you're saying according to your accent versus what Siri actually sounds like. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So also Apple released a new app. It's the Apple TV remote app. This is not an update for the current remote app. It's a whole new app altogether. So have you had a chance to check that out?
Yeah, I have. So as you mentioned, they've got the Apple TV remote app, and then the old remote app I think they've renamed it iTunes Remote, even though it still works with the Apple TV. And so the new Apple TV remote is basically the software version of the Siri remote. So you can use Siri. It's got like 15-second forward and back buttons. It's got swipe controls. It's pretty nifty. It's one of those things where it's like, a nice to have if you don't have the actual remote. But I've always preferred the physical remote. What do you reckon?
Yeah. I mean, it was cool to try it out. I love the actual icon itself is cool. The interface is cool because I remember when I opened it up, I sort of thought, I kind of thought it hadn't loaded properly, and then I realized it's actually visually it's like a app version of the remote where it's got dark grey up the top and black down the bottom.
Yeah. Like
the actual Siri remote. So that was pretty cool. I think the best parts of it mainly is when it comes to inputting text, like emails and passwords, to be able to use your iPhone keyboard.
Yeah.
I know they got dictation on Siri, but sometimes where you want a capital letter, it doesn't put it and that sort of thing. So when you do stuff like playing your music and that, you get the artwork appear, which is pretty cool, media controls. And it's got a game mode, which I haven't tried out yet. It actually uses the accelerometer and gyroscope in your phone for the games that use that. And the cool thing is the app is compatible with not just Apple TV 4, but with 2 and 3 as well. So that's good. And if your TV has CEC support, then when you change the volume on your phone, the actual volume buttons, it will change it on the TV. But generally, a lot of TV models use infrared for that. So that part didn't work for me. But hey, if yours has CEC support, then there you go. All right, so moving on to Rumour Mill. Now we are counting down the days. We don't have confirmed dates for this September event, the iPhone launch, expecting new Apple Watch, all that sort of thing. But here's some dates that are looking pretty likely. So it's looking like that the pre-orders for the iPhone 7 will be on September 9th. With shipping to stores in the week of September 12th, but won't go any further than September 19th. So between 12th and 19th of September, expect the actual physical iPhones to be shipping to stores. Now, Apple traditionally opens the pre-orders the Friday after the event. So according to these dates, this means the event could be either on Tuesday the 6th or Wednesday the 7th. So kind of looking at these dates, does this feel pretty likely to you, Nick?
Yeah, it sounds about right. It sounded like it's quite early in the month, but given the leaks that we've been seeing in terms of the actual hardware, it looks like that's all settled and done and has been for a while. There hasn't been much movement in a couple of months there, so it's been a while since they actually decided what they're going for, and I think they're pretty settled on these dates. Obviously, it can change, and they haven't actually sent out invites, but they usually send out invites about 10 days before, usually on the Monday before the event, so we would be seeing late August some confirmation on these dates. Now, on a personal level, I'll be not in an initial launch country during that period. I'm going to be back in South Africa for much of September, so that will be not too fun on my end because they'll never get it first, and obviously I was looking forward to having it quite early on, but yeah,
I'll just order one and express ship it over. So
oh yeah, I did that with my Apple Watches before I got to Australia. We bought them and shipped them over, and it cost like $200 a piece just to get them there. But I couldn't wait.
Yeah, okay, that's dedication there. Well, that'll certainly be interesting. For yourself, given your movements and that sort of thing. what I really would like out of this event is some sort of surprise. I mean, we've been tracking these leaks of what the iPhone 7 could look like and that sort of thing. There's been talk here and there of Apple Watch 2, which we'll mention soon. Yeah, I mean, what are you feeling? I mean, do you think there's going to be... Do you think we've kind of covered all bases and everything will be as expected, or...?
I think there'll be some software surprises, but I don't think that there'll be many hardware surprises. I think we're likely to see a very similar design compared to the iPhone 6S. We may get an extra color. It's likely to be the dual camera lens in the bigger version, the Plus or Pro, whatever they end up going with. And I think in terms of hardware, I don't think there'll be very many surprises. So I think the one thing that is a bit up in the air is the home button. I'm not sure whether that's going to be the force touch home button or an actual button. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I think as you said, and we'll get into it a bit later, but I'm really keen for what Apple Watch 2 and actually seeing what happens there. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I am hoping that at least, say with that, you're talking about the touch ID, the home button being, like a force touch ID, essentially. That would be cool because that would be something that just further differentiates it from 6S. Considering the amount of, people complaining about how they would just want to wait till next year because this phone's going to be hardly different. I reckon there'll be enough difference.
Do you reckon that's people on the ground or just reviewers? I don't know whether it's just reviewers saying, they're not interested at this point, and they're going to get the device to try anyway. So it's
to be honest, I think with the amount of news sites and people in the media and that sort of thing in tech that we follow, it's primarily not just general public. And I feel like that it'll still sell well. It probably it won't be that major change in the iPhone or something that'll really spike it, but they'll definitely get some strong sales out of it. But I feel like that next year is going to be when they can just get more of that rumored tech and that redesign out there. Now, speaking of rumored technology, it is looking like that Apple will be implementing eye scanning technology in something that may be called Iris ID. Now, this is looks like it's for hardware in 2018. Now, the new Samsung Galaxy Note 7 uses this sort of technology. So, obviously there's going to be a lot of fanboys out there from that side saying that Apple ripped them off. But to be honest, I think just both sides, people with Android devices and then Apple would have been looking to this technology for a long time. I feel like that when it does come out, as usual, if the tech exists in other phones, and then when Apple comes out with their version, it's usually just a better, more polished version. So, I mean, what do you think about this Iris ID, and do you think it'll actually even be useful?
Yeah, look, I think it'll probably just integrate seamlessly and won't be something so obvious. It's a bit like just how Touch ID is so fast now that it's basically, and they've actually changed the software around it to just be touch home to open. So I think it'll be seamless. My only concern with this is, so on the Note 7, and obviously Apple's implementation will be different, you can make purchases with it.
Yeah.
So
okay.
My only concern is I've a couple of times accidentally pressed on in-app purchases that incessantly pop up, and then I'm wary of pressing home to jump out of there in case it actually authorizes a payment through the App Store, and I'm really concerned that just looking at your phone would make an in-app purchase accidentally.
Well, from what I've seen with that Galaxy Note 7, it's kind of like two circles on the upper part of the screen and you line your eyes up with it. So it's a bit more of that little bit of effort to kind of do it rather than just it catching your eyes. But who knows what it'll actually be like by the time it comes out in, well, what's rumoured to be 2018. So,
Yeah.
but I do understand your concerns. You don't want, I mean, I'm sure they'd think about this sort of thing, but even the fact that you said about being hesitant to touch the home button because of Touch ID is quite interesting. I haven't heard that one before. So, I'm sure the Apple execs are listening to the podcast and they're going to make some serious changes. So
yeah, you'll change their roadmap, and it's not the first time that's been done on Apple Slice. So yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about what Apple Watch 2 coming in? Firstly, do you think we'll see it at this iPhone launch? Do you think we'll have one sort of fall event for Apple this year, or what are your feelings there, and what do you think we'll see?
I think this September event with iPhone will have Apple Watch 2 as well. I'm not sure if it'll be called that or whatever. I kind of feel like it might just be like a, like your 6 to 6S, like that sort of, they might treat it like that, where the hardware will be the same, but the internals will be bumped up, and stuff like it having its own cellular reception and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I am feeling like it will be there. I really want it to be because I've been hanging out for Apple Watch 2 for a long time. But there hasn't been that much in the rumours about it. We do have a few things that people have been talking about. The idea of a one glass display, or OGS, as it's called. So this is essentially, rather than the Apple Watch, which is currently glass on glass, it removes one of those layers. So they'd be able to either allow more space for internals or actually decrease the thickness of the device itself. But it is expected that the actual design with Apple Watch 2 will not really be much different at all. And there was also talk of Apple moving to micro LED instead of OLED for the display. But with this rumor kind of popping up late in the piece and obviously having to order panels and stuff, I wouldn't expect this until Apple Watch 3. But I am feeling like September event, we'll see iPhone, Apple Watch, because they've covered iPad already. They might do a spec bump update for the 12.9. But yeah, I feel like it's obviously iPhone's the big one. But yeah, I reckon Apple Watch definitely. So yeah, what do you reckon about that?
Yeah, so I bought a new Apple Watch band yesterday. I got the sort of like grey and black nylon band.
Oh, cool.
So
so have you actually got it? Like you?
Yeah, we went to the store in Brisbane and actually got it. And yeah, a quick review on that is it's actually one of my favorites, gone right to the top. I've been wearing it pretty much since we walked out of the store, and it's really light, really comfortable, don't have to really worry about water, and just on the better side. So I'm really enjoying it, and it looks quite nice with the stainless steel Apple Watch that I have. It just blends really well, and yeah, so I wear a lot of black, and it looks pretty good in my opinion, and really, as I say, it's quite light. So I definitely recommend getting at least one of those.
I reckon it's great to hear because, as I said, with the nylon mixed reviews before, I hadn't actually been able to see one. So, for you to say that you're liking it, I reckon is pretty cool. All right, so yeah. Okay.
So yeah, just quickly on that is I really hope that the Apple Watch 2 has the same band. That's what I guess is my main thing. Yeah, because I'll definitely be getting it. So
I think they'll have to. Yeah, I don't think there's probably like 0.01% chance of them changing the lug shape or anything like that. I mean, that will be, they're really trying to obviously, sell. There was a sort of extended introduction with Apple Watch, and then, people sort of taking it on and sales, and they're continuing with their marketing pretty well with it. And, now with the updated Apple Watch OS, it's got more people excited about it. I think for them to change how the bands connect would just, that would just completely kill it for a lot of people.
Yeah, I also don't think that they'll name it Apple Watch 2. I would actually be very surprised if they did any numbering with Apple Watches, given the Apple Watch Edition and just the price of that. If you, just by adding a number into a name, you're already like making it very clear which is the old one and which is the new one. Whereas if you just got Apple Watch, you've got the thin one or the thick one, whatever model you've got, it's actually like the same device, if that sort of makes sense. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what they do there.
Yeah, all right. I definitely agree. I mean, they don't change the name of the iMacs each time. It's just that is like the new standard of the iMac. So yeah, that sounds that sounds like the way to go, I think. Now, moving on to the deal down under. The Australian banks, the other three major banks, that's NAB, Commonwealth and Westpac, they've been saying some things about Apple and Apple Pay. So would you like to kind of expand upon this?
Yeah, so they've been claiming Apple's in breach of antitrust laws by not allowing third-party access to the NFC chip. And they want to be able to use Apple's NFC chip for their own mobile wallet app. So I bank with CBA, and they've got like an actual NFC little sticker, basically sticker size thing that they send you that you can put on your phone, and it's not authenticated or anything like that. So that's because they don't have access to the iPhone NFC chip, and they do on Android, so you wouldn't need that if you have an Android phone. But yeah, my thoughts are that they must dry their eyes and move on, and should have been a bit better on the innovation side, and maybe they wouldn't have been overtaken by this.
I really thought that by ANZ jumping on that it would have, we were expecting that sort of flow-on effect, and it hasn't happened yet, and instead it sounds like they've banded together and they're kind of like sulking in the corner about it, you know what I mean? That's, I just want them to just go ahead with it. They're really holding Australia back with their adoption of Apple Pay. I'm seeing more, since ANZ taking it on, by the way, I'm seeing more Apple Pay logos about on the actual machines and that you pay through, and some stickers in store windows and stuff. So, I always want to stand out the front of my local Commonwealth and just shake my iPhone in the air and be like, "Give me Apple Pay" or something. Just cause a protest or something.
It's disappointing because if you look at other if you look at Australian banking compared to, or at least like payment methods compared to the US. Before Apple Pay, Australia was way better in terms of contactless payments, chip and PIN cards, and in that sense, South Africa is also better than the US in terms of chip and PIN cards. It's just disappointing to see them not staying ahead of that wave, because technology moves quite quickly, and ahead 1 year is not necessarily ahead the next year. So
yeah, all it's going to take is for one of them to cave. And then, I just think, we said that last time and it didn't happen. So I really hope that this isn't just a fight until the end, because, it's just, surely they realise the volume of users that they're missing out on, and really that, better serving your customers if you can support Apple Pay. I'm sure ANZ has, we did see the stats. They did get more, like a big influx of people applying for accounts and cards upon announcing Apple Pay. So just go ahead and do it.
And especially with like web integration and as apps become more and more integrated, it's just going to, it makes it easier to spend on that. And let's hope that sort of also helps apply the pressure.
Yeah. I mean, as we know, we have all the head of Commonwealth and stuff. They're just tuning into hanging out for the next Apple Slice episode, so I'm sure they'll be feeling the pressure a bit from us, so there you go. Now, I want to announce a new segment completely focused on Apple patents. So Apple patents, there's a lot that there's a lot that you probably don't hear about, but a lot that do pop up, and some that just seem like Apple are putting a patent in for something just to cover themselves. But I've pulled out a couple that have come out recently, which are quite interesting. So this segment I'd like to call Pick a Patent. And we're going to start with the idea of, the patent for a whole screen Touch ID. Now, this doesn't seem ridiculous at all. It seems quite logical, and I would imagine probably even next year's iPhone could have it. So, how do you feel about this sort of thing?
Yeah, it would be really cool. So that rumor's been floating kind of around I think before Touch ID itself was even launched. So it would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it for that one, I reckon. We have another one, which is a bit more interesting about Apple Pencil on Mac, specifically Apple Pencil working on Mac trackpads. So this was filed in 2014 and it's just been granted. Now, the interesting thing about it is in the drawings and that sort of thing and what's actually written, the pencil that's in the patent seems, well, it definitely is more advanced than the current pencil. So we could see an update to Apple Pencil as well in the near future, where it looks like it can kind of be used like an Air mouse or a joystick. So first of all, what do you sort of think a joystick could be useful for? I can imagine the Air mouse part of it, and then what sort of kind of applications in that could you see this being used in?
A joystick. The only thing I could ever imagine a joystick being useful for is a flight simulator. And in terms of applications, there's definitely like the way you in design, so you may know how to pronounce it better than I do, but there's like the Wacom tablet or the Wacom tablet.
Oh, Wacom, yeah.
And so obviously that's like used quite heavily in terms of like sort of drawing input or sort of that kind of input onto a computer. So I could imagine it being like a replacement for that. There's actually an app that allows you to use your Apple Pencil and iPad Pro, but like that at the moment. But I think, look, in terms, I've got an Apple Pencil and I use it all the time, but just having it and using it and having like this kind of rumor about being able to use it on your Mac, it just makes me wish I could draw better than I can. I find it so much more useful.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that people actually were sort of expected it. This support would have been from the start, being able to use it on a trackpad. So it's definitely a lot of people would love it. Now, how I could see an Air mouse being used is imagine 3D design. So, when people work on 3D models and that sort of thing. Yeah. I can imagine using the end of it to rotate the 3D model and then the actual point part of it to apply shapes and manipulate things. Even stuff like with Photoshop, with more and more of the releases in recent years, they've had where you can apply graphics to actual sections of 3D models. So you import your 3D model and then you kind of like paint on it in Photoshop. So that sort of thing, I think definitely, your 3D is where the Air mouse would be very useful. So we'll just wait and see what happens there. And also quickly, we had what popped up is Samsung. They filed a patent last Thursday for a wearable device. Now, that in itself is quite broad, but there were many patent drawings, but there were 12 that looked exactly like the Apple Watch. So obviously, straight off the bat, a lot of Apple people were like, oh, they're trying to patent the Apple Watch, but a lot of the online comments state that this was intentional. It was Samsung's way of trying to demonstrate the idea of detachable bands by using the Apple Watch drawings. But I think that's strange and quite slack. I mean, what do you think they're trying to achieve with this?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because given the patent was for bands, they actually drew it exactly with Apple's bands. There's like the modern buckle there that I can remember offhand, and it was just like an identical copy. So I'm not sure what they were trying to achieve, really. Some other people online were also saying it's not uncommon to use like, I guess what everyone would associate with a smartwatch, to use that representation and then build on that. So I'm not sure exactly what they were going for, but it's not unlike Samsung to basically look over there at what Apple's doing. So yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before the designs converge.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we're going to change it up to appetizers. Pretty excited about this one. Nic is going to talk about Swift Playgrounds in a bit, but I want to review a app game which I'm really into. So it's one I've played and replayed over the past couple of weeks. It's called Typewriter. So this is particularly applicable because it kind of follows on from our typography discussion last episode. Now it's a adventure, platformer, and puzzle game, kind of all together. Now I don't often download, let alone purchase game apps, but I kind of keep up with the industry via Good Game and Good Game Pocket on ABC iView. Now this is where I found out about Typewriter. So it was actually originally released back in 2013 and received several app updates over a 6-month period, and it seems like they've improved it a lot. So I'm glad I found out about it now. My first impressions of this is just wow, like this speaks to me on multiple levels. Okay, it combines impressive sort of semi-gothic silhouette style visuals with typographic design and typographic history. So as the title suggests, you are literally riding along the letters of fonts, and these fonts are kind of major milestones in history, such as Garamond, Dido, Futura, Helvetica, and so on. Now, you play as 2 dots that act as one, so it's actually a colon. And they have like this sort of invisible ebb flow connection to each other, if you kind of think back to Rayman with the floating hands and feet and that sort of thing. But it's got more of a stronger pull. Now, this gives an interesting bouncing physics element to the game. So each font is so there's 9 plus a bonus one. Each font is a book, and it's separated into 4 chapters. So across those 4 chapters, you need to collect letters A to Z and collect asterisks to unlock historical information, which is really cool. So it's educational as well as, being a game. Now, aside from avoiding pitfalls and spikes and enemies and stuff, you need to solve some puzzles, and they don't sort of really repeat a puzzle. So they definitely keep it diverse. And ultimately, towards the end of each book per se, you have to push a 3rd white dot into place to kind of end the level. Now, without giving too much away, I've got some quick pros and cons about Typewriter. So pros, visually it's stunning. It's very sharp and crisp and flows very well. It's got a good frame rate too. It's thematically consistent with each fonts and of how they were applied and the time period they're from. So they got one for Clarendon, which is a Western style font, and the whole level is Western style, and the music and everything and the colors, and I just was really into it. Now it's packed with awesome typographic history, so you can really kind of nerd it out with other designers and like-minded people. So I definitely learned a few things out of that, and the level design is very diverse. Now the cons is because I love it so much, I want more. So there's 10 fonts in total, but I think a expansion update would be very welcome. And some of the ways the character moves can be frustrating or inconsistent. So how you kind of think it will flow it and react it doesn't, but overall it controls pretty well. So I gave Typewriter 4 out of 5 stars in the App Store. So if this sounds like your type of thing, search type::writer, one word, and in the App Store, and it's available to buy for $4.49. So there you go. Now, Nick, Swift Playgrounds. Can you tell the guys about this?
Yeah, sure. Just on Typewriter quickly, I was just having a look at it before too. It looks pretty cool. I certainly like that kind of design. It's quite like impactful with the like sort of like black and white or the black outlines and then the design in the background. So if our listeners are keen on that and want to try out some other games, I don't know if you've ever tried Limbo. That's pretty cool. It's not really, it wouldn't follow like a same sort of actual play method as Typewriter, but just in terms of visuals. And then there's also Badland and Badland 2, which are quite cool and also have really good sound. So if you like Typewriter and especially visually, you can check out those games too.
Yeah, cool. Will do.
Yeah, so this week I've been playing around with Swift Playgrounds, as I mentioned. It's now that we've got iOS 10 on our iPads, so I can code in quite a few languages. I've tried to play around with Swift before, but Swift Playgrounds on a Mac actually require a subscription or a developer subscription. So I haven't actually ever bought that. It's $100 American a year. And so Swift Playgrounds is sort of designed to be used or gotten into by a novice or like a younger person, so a novice coder, and they really start at the basics, like just really right at the beginning, and they explain it really well in plain English and sort of swap out that English with code to show you like how things work. So if you're comparing two variables, for example, it will just do it really well and gives you really good real life examples of, okay, this is what we would use this for, how we would use it, and how it translates into code. And so they also, given that they're teaching you how to code, they actually are quite good in implementing best coding principles. So they teach you like, well, at least how they prefer variable naming. They teach you to write efficient code. So it's really pretty useful. And they also they really push that you can write code to, like, multiple bits of code will do the same thing. Some things will be more efficient. Some things will have the same efficiency, but just be different. So they really I think have done a fantastic job with Swift Playgrounds. There's like a beginner sort of playground and then a more advanced one beyond the basics. And so I've just started right at the beginning just so I can get the notation of Swift going. And it's just on that. It's one of the more intuitive notations that I've dealt with. And really, yeah, I've been enjoying it. It's really cool. My partner had no coding experience, and she's been going at it full on every time I'm on it, which has been most of the day lately. She's also on it and really keeping up. So it's really cool. The basic premise of it is, at least in the beginning one, you have like this little thing that they call byte, which is just basically a character that you have to navigate around a virtual world. And there are gems and switches and dead ends, and you have to just navigate around that and essentially just solve the puzzle each time. And yeah, it's really good. So I'd highly recommend that if you are into or looking at getting into coding, that you try out Swift Playgrounds.
I'm definitely keen on giving that a go when iOS 10, the final release, comes out, because I know stuff like just related to web, just with CSS and JavaScript and HTML, and back in the day, particularly ActionScript when Flash was a thing, which is still very much applicable because you can convert it to HTML5. But yeah, I'm really keen on giving it a go, and it was awesome that you said that the example with your partner not having any coding experience and then really getting into it. That hits the nail on the head. That's exactly what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
From the presentation. So that's awesome.
And that presentation is what I think swayed her. They had like a little video on basically people who you wouldn't expect to be coders, and they've done it a few times, basically trying to get away from the notion that only nerdy sort of male people that fit a certain description are able to code, and this really gets away from that, and like, yeah, it just gives access to everyone to be able to learn code and apply it in any way. And it's just interesting because, you're writing a function, they teach you how to do a function, and then they like apps like Instagram work like this, where they've broken up a bit of each problem and put all their solutions together to make the app. So when you see things like that, like what I actually did, yes, there's a lot to go to make it visually like Instagram, but I'm essentially getting into the bare bones of what ends up being an app. And yeah, it's really, really good, and I highly suggest using it. I do think it would be, just in terms of like a usability side, it is good on the iPad Pro with the keyboard. The software keyboard is really like finicky and can be quite frustrating, but I think that that's a code thing generally. It's just, an actual hardware keyboard is easier. And they just, on the notation, they give you like, on quick type suggestions, they actually give you like all the available functions and if statements and a whole bunch of things that if you tap there, it will give you like the notation automatically, which is just useful if you don't necessarily need to know how to do the notation from scratch when you're starting. So it's just nice to like, oh, that's how it works, and then build on it from there.
Oh yeah, that sounds awesome. So very keen for that. And we're going to move on into edible extras. Now, Apple are working on a reality show called Planet of the Apps. So you can kind of gauge what that's about. So basically, it's about app developers. They have to pitch a working app to like a panel of people. So applicants must have a iOS, watchOS, macOS, or tvOS app in beta or functional state by October 21. This is people applying for it. So the filming actually commences in Los Angeles in late 2016 through to early 2017. Now we've had the 3 of the advisors to these app developers have been confirmed, which is quite interesting. It's Gwyneth Paltrow, will.i.am, and a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who I had never heard of, but I sort of looked into it. So that is an actress, musician, and entrepreneur, respectively. What do you think about this choice of advisors? It's good that they mixed different sort of job roles together, but it wasn't overly inspiring.
It's bizarre. I don't understand why they've gone that way. I suppose they've got it, as you mentioned, it is a show, so start at the entertainment value. But we've mentioned quite a few times that we're fans of Craig Federighi and his vibe. Imagine having him as like I get that it's not his day job, right? He has a lot of stuff to worry about, but I just envision like surely they could have found someone who's into code and would have done well. I don't know.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I know why will.i.am's been involved in technology, and he's had a lot of stuff that he's released, some that's quite questionable.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's because some people in the comments are like, oh, he's a genius. He loves Steve Jobs. I'm like, yeah, but we all love Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean we're all geniuses. The Gwyneth Paltrow one, it doesn't make sense apart from, I don't know, they're just using her to kind of get more viewers.
Look, maybe it's just to add a bit of diversity into their thinking. I suppose I'm thinking of like an actual code mentor, but maybe the people who are on the show, I think just from listening around, it seems like they already have coding experience. So it's not like they actually need to be taught anything, I suppose. It's just more of like, how do you make a successful app? So maybe in that sort of thinking outside the box vibe.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's, if you remember that episode in one of the more recent episodes of Silicon Valley, where he has his beta and he sends out invites to all his friends to review it, and they're all coders and they all loved it. And then his fellow employee who's not a coder doesn't like the app they made, and that's kind of almost what I'm feeling like the Gwyneth Paltrow part of it would be. It would be someone who doesn't actually, it doesn't have coding experience, so she's going to give more of a general user kind of feedback to their apps.
Have you ever watched The Internship? The one about Google?
No. Yeah, no.
It's there's just a killer moment there where basically these old guys and they on the show, I mean, they like at an internship at Google, and they have to come up with an app idea. So I guess similar to like Planet of the Apps, and all the old guy can say is like, photos on the line. So it's basically, they're like, okay, that's like Instagram. And he's like, no, this is different. And yeah, it's just, every time I think of the show, I just think of that moment.
Happening. Yeah. I'll definitely have to check that out. It sounds pretty good. And well, I guess finally, I mean, it will get more thoughts once we see a trailer and stuff for it. But I guess the final part of it is, what do you think of the name? I like it, given I'm into wordplay and puns and stuff that some people think is lame. What do you reckon about it?
Yeah, I think the name is pretty decent. So I think one of the other things that we just need to cover is that it will be probably on Apple Music, although they haven't actually announced. Have they announced that? I don't think so. But yeah, I think it'll be an Apple Music exclusive for their subscribers. So it's just an interesting direction that they're going in with original content. So
Yeah. I mean, we'll. I hope they just sort of release it separately somehow, like in its own app or something for Apple TV instead. That'd be good. Yeah. But yeah, and to cap things off, the Apple Store app has had an update. So this is pretty cool. It's got kind of like For You recommendations and a new layout. So I just opened it straight up, and it knows, based on my account, that I have a space grey iPhone 6S, and it gave me a whole bunch of options for these are accessories for it. So, it was pretty cool. I'm liking the new layout, the design. I like the previous icon was fine, but it's literally an inverted version of that. Have you checked this out?
Yeah, I have checked it out, and it was giving me recommendations for my Space Gray iPad Pro. So, funny one there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that this is actually how it should have been done for years. They link your devices by Apple ID, not by purchase through the app, which I like, and that's a separate thing because I don't always buy through Apple or always use that account. So I just like that they know, okay, we know that these are the devices that you actually use, so recommend based on that. And it's pretty cool. I used it in store to buy the Apple Watch Band yesterday, just on the sort of self-checkout thing, and it was a little bit buggy, but it's a brand new version, and it seems like it's been redesigned from the ground up. So I would expect one or two bugs and just not 100% feature parity there. So yeah.
So for anyone that wants to check that out, just install the update, and if anyone has any thoughts on the type of stuff we're talking about, these app updates, changes in UI, new icons, the user experience, what do you think about Planet of the Apps and that type of thing? You can let us know over Twitter. So we have our own Twitter accounts. Mine is @SwordToPen, SWORD2PEN. And yours, Nick?
Yeah, mine's Nick_Morris, and as you mentioned earlier, that's Nick without a K, so just NRC. And just quickly, while we're on Twitter, Simon, you would have seen the Kanye Apple Tidal rant. So I've brought that up, and I thought it might be worthwhile reading through the rant. If you've listened this far, you probably want to hear it. So yeah, I guess if you have kids listening, you might want to just switch off, but. He started off by saying, this title, Apple beef is fucking up the music game. And then goes on to say, I need Tim Cook, Jay-Z, Dez, Jimmy, Larry, me, and Drake, Scooter on the phone or in a room this week, triple exclamation mark. Then he goes, fuck all this dick swinging contest. We all gonna be dead in 100 years. Let the kids have the music. Then says, Apple give Jay his check for Tidal now and stop trying to act like you, Steve. And then just randomly a little bit later goes, I forgot to add Daniel Ek. And Daniel Ek is the CEO of Spotify, so he obviously forgot to add him to his list of who needs to be in a room or on a phone this week. So yeah, that was entertaining.
Yeah, I don't really know what your thoughts are on Kanye, but yeah, his head's in another place.
I've followed his music for a long time, so he goes a long way on that. Like, it takes a lot for me to write him off, but oh man, that was an entertaining bit of Twitter ranting going on there.
Yeah. So there you go. Our first restricted episode.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So that about wraps up another episode. Also, if you want to follow our official page on Twitter, it's @AppleSliceAU, or on Facebook, it's facebook.com/AppleSlice Podcast, or you can find us on iTunes by searching Apple Slice Podcast. Leave a review, let us know any ways to improve, what you want to hear, that sort of thing. And it's been great chatting with you, Nick, and I look forward to talking with you from South Africa.
Yeah,
next time.
I think I'll still be in Australia next podcast.
Okay, there you go. Yep, cool.
So.
All right, no worries. Cool. Yeah, thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Cool, keep well. Cheers.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award winning Auscast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Auscast.
Simply head to auscastnetwork.com for details.